The needle's sting was the last thing I felt before the world blurred into darkness. I woke to the scent of pine and the distant howl of a wolf. My wrists bound, my heart pounding like a war drum. 5 years ago, I clawed my way out of Caleb's pack, leaving behind the alpha who claimed I was his forever, only to be dragged back now, betrayed by those I trusted most. My name is Ethan, an Omega born into a world where scent and strength dictate your fate. In the rural heart of Montana, where the mountains loom like silent judges, I once believed I could rewrite my story. I fled Caleb's pack at 19, trading a life of submission for one of freedom in Seattle, where I built a quiet existence as a barista, hiding my scent with blockers and my past with lies. But freedom, I learned, is a fragile thing. Last night, a sip of spiked coffee from a so-called friend sent me spiraling back to the life I thought I'd buried. The truck's engine growled as we wound through the forest, the ropes cutting into my skin. My captors, two betas from Caleb's pack, kept their eyes on the road, their silence heavier than words. I knew where we were headed, the pack's compound. A sprawling fortress of log cabins and iron gates nestled deep in the Bitterroot Valley. Caleb's domain. The alpha who'd once looked at me like I was the moon itself, promising love in one breath and control in the next. I'd loved him once, fiercely, stupidly, until his need to dominate choked the air from my lungs. As the truck slowed, I caught my reflection in the window pane. Hollow-eyed, but not broken. Not yet. I'd survived Caleb once. I could do it again. The betas hauled me out, their grips bruising, and marched me toward the main lodge. The air was thick with the scent of alpha pheromones, sharp and commanding, and my body betrayed me with a shiver I couldn't suppress. Omegas were wired to respond, but I'd spent years fighting that instinct, and I wasn't about to crumble now. The lodge doors swung open, and there he was. Caleb. Taller than I remembered, his dark hair longer, his blue eyes sharper, like they could cut through steel. He stood in the doorway, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, almost tender, but laced with something darker. "You shouldn't have run." I wanted to spit in his face, to scream that I'd never be his, but my throat tightened. The memories flooded back, nights under the stars. His laughter, his touch, the way he'd made me feel like I was enough. And then the fights, the possessiveness, the way he'd lock me in rooms for my own good. Love and fear had tangled in my chest back then, and standing here now, I hated how much of it still lingered. "You drugged me," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "You sent your dogs to drag me back. What's left to say?" "Caleb." He stepped closer, and I braced myself, expecting anger. Instead, his fingers brushed my cheek, soft as a whisper. "I never stopped looking for you," he murmured. "You're mine, Ethan. You always will be." I jerked away, the ropes biting deeper. "I'm not property," I snapped. "I left because I wanted a life, not a cage." His jaw tightened, but he didn't strike me, didn't shout. That was the thing about Caleb. Wasn't a cartoon villain. He was worse. He believed he loved me, believed he was saving me from a world that would chew me up. And that conviction made him dangerous. The betas shoved me toward a room in the lodge, a small space with a single bed and barred windows. Caleb followed, his scent wrapping around me like a noose. "You'll stay here until you remember who you are," He said. Who we are. I remember just fine. I shot back. That's why I ran. He paused, his eyes searching mine. And for a moment, I saw the boy I'd fallen for at 16, the one who'd snuck me extra food when the pack starved Omegas to keep us weak. Who'd kissed me under a harvest moon and promised we'd build a life together. But that boy was gone, swallowed by the alpha who thought love meant ownership. As the door locked behind me, I sank onto the bed, my mind racing. I had to get out. But Caleb's pack was a fortress, and my blockers were wearing off. My Omega scent would soon betray me, drawing every alpha in a 10-mile radius. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. Hours passed, the moon rising outside the barred window. I tested the ropes, my wrists raw but my resolve unbroken. Then I heard Ida's soft tap at the window. My heart leapt. A shadow moved outside, and a voice whispered, "Ethan, it's me." I froze. That voice. Low. Warm. Familiar. It couldn't be. I crept to the window, peering through the bars. In the moonlight stood Lucas, the beta who'd helped me escape 5 years ago. The one I'd left behind. Not because I didn't love him, but because I couldn't ask him to risk everything for me. "Lucas," I whispered, my voice cracking. His hazel eyes met mine, filled with the same quiet strength that had kept me sane during my first escape. He held up a knife, glinting in the moonlight, and began sawing at the bars. "I never stopped watching out for you," he said softly. "When I heard they took you, I came as fast as I could." Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them away. Lucas had always been my anchor, the one who saw me as more than an Omega, more than a prize. Back then, our love had been a secret, stolen moments in the shadows of Caleb's tyranny. I'd left him to protect him, but now he was here, risking his life again. "Lucas, if they catch you, they won't," he said, his voice firm. "Not this time." The bar gave way, and he reached through, his fingers brushing mine. The touch sent a jolt through me, not the primal pull of an alpha, but something deeper, truer. "We're getting you out," he said, "but we have to move now." I nodded, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Lucas was my chance, my only chance. But as we worked to free the remaining bars, a low growl echoed from the darkness. My blood ran cold. Someone was watching. The growl grew louder, a primal warning that sent my pulse into overdrive. Lucas froze, his knife still pressed against the bar, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay quiet," he whispered, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his calm. We were so close, one bar left, but the forest around us felt alive with threat. Every rustle a potential death sentence. "Lucas, go," I hissed, my voice barely audible. "If they find you, I'm not leaving you," he snapped, his jaw set. The moonlight caught the sweat on his brow, the determination in his eyes. He'd always been stubborn, but this was different. This was the kind of reckless courage that could get us both killed. Before I could argue, a figure stepped into the clearing. Not Caleb, but Marcus, his second in command, an alpha whose cruelty made Caleb's control seem gentle. His eyes gleamed yellow in the dark, his lips curling into a sneer. Well, he drawled. The runaway Omega and his little beta savior. Caleb's gonna love this. Lucas dropped the knife and stepped in front of the window, shielding me. Let him go. Marcus, he said, his voice steady despite the odds. This doesn't have to end in blood. Marcus laughed. A cold, guttural sound. You think you can bargain with me? You're nothing. Beta. And him. He jerked his chin toward me. He's Caleb's property. Always will be. I gripped the bars, my nails digging into the metal. I'm no one's property. I spat. But Marcus ignored me, his eyes fixed on Lucas. The air thickened with alpha pheromones, oppressive and suffocating, and my knees buckled. I hated how my body reacted, how it betrayed me even now. Lucas didn't flinch. You want him? You'll have to go through me. Marcus lunged, faster than I could process, and tackled Lucas to the ground. I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat as they rolled in the dirt, fists flying. Lucas was strong, but Marcus was an alpha, built for dominance. I yanked at the bars, desperate to help, but they held firm. Blood smeared Lucas's face, and my heart shattered as Marcus pinned him, a clawed hand at his throat. Stop! I shouted, my voice raw. Marcus, please. He glanced at me, his grin feral. Begging already. Omega. Save it for Caleb. But then Lucas moved, swift and precise, driving his knee into Marcus's gut. The alpha grunted, loosening his grip, and Lucas scrambled to his feet, grabbing the knife. For a moment, I thought he'd win. But Marcus was faster. He roared, slamming Lucas against a tree, the crack of wood echoing like a gunshot. Lucas! I cried, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't lose him. Not like this. Not after everything. Then, a new scent hit Mepin and Storm. Unmistakable. Caleb. He emerged from the shadows, his presence silencing the night. Marcus stepped back, deferring instantly, but Caleb's eyes were on me. Then Lucas, his expression unreadable. Let him go. Caleb, I said, my voice shaking but defiant. He's got nothing to do with this. Caleb's gaze softened, but only for a moment. He's got everything to do with this, he said quietly. He's the reason you ran. My stomach twisted. Caleb knew. He'd always known about Lucas, about the stolen glances, the quiet moments that had kept me sane. Back then, I'd thought we'd hidden it well. But Caleb's jealousy was a living thing, sharp and relentless. Take him to the cells, Caleb ordered Marcus, his voice cold. We'll deal with him later. No. I lunged against the bars, my wrists bleeding. Caleb, don't do this. Punish me. Not him. Caleb turned to me, his eyes blazing. You think this is punishment? I'm protecting you. Ethan. From him. From yourself. You belong here. With me. I belong where I choose to be, I said, my voice breaking. And it's not with you. For a moment, he looked stricken, like I'd stabbed him. But then his face hardened, and he gestured to Marcus. Take the beta. Now. As Marcus dragged Lucas away, our eyes met one last time. I'll come for you. Lucas mouthed, his face bruised but unbroken. I nodded, clinging to that promise. even as despair clawed at my chest. Caleb stayed, watching me through the bars. "Why him?" he asked, his voice low, almost vulnerable. "What does he give you that I can't?" I swallowed, my throat tight. "He gives me freedom," I said. "You only ever gave me chains." He flinched, but didn't respond. Instead, he turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the dark. I sank to the floor, my body trembling, but my mind racing. Lucas was alive. For now. I had to hold on to that. I had to find a way to save him. To save us both. The next morning, the pack was buzzing with tension. I overheard the betas outside my door, rumors of a rival pack circling, drawn by the chaos of my return. Caleb was distracted, his authority questioned. It was a crack in his armor, a chance I couldn't waste. I spent the day testing my prison. The bars were solid, but the lock on the door was old, rusted. If I could find something to pick it with, I might have a shot. My blockers were gone, my scent now a beacon, but that could work in my favor. Alphas were drawn to Omegas, but they underestimated us, too. I could use that. By nightfall, I'd fashioned a crude tool from a loose bed spring. The lock clicked after agonizing minutes, and I slipped into the hallway, my heart in my throat. The lodge was quiet, but danger lurked in every shadow. I moved silently, my bare feet cold against the wood, following the faint scent of Lucas earth and warmth. A lifeline in the chaos. I found the cells in the basement, guarded by a single beta. He was young, nervous, his eyes darting. I let my scent flare, just enough to distract him. And when he stepped closer, I struck, slamming the bed spring into his temple. He crumpled, and I grabbed his keys, my hands shaking as I unlocked the cell. Lucas was there, bruised but alive, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. "Ethan," he whispered, pulling me into a hug that felt like home. "I knew you'd come." "We're not out yet," I said, helping him up. His arm was around my shoulders, his weight heavy but grounding. We crept upstairs, avoiding patrols, the night air sharp as we slipped outside. The forest loomed, both a refuge and a trap. We had to move fast. But as we reached the tree line, a howl split the air. Caleb's howl. He knew. The howl reverberated through the trees, a primal call that froze my blood. Lucas tightened his grip on my hand, his breath ragged but his resolve unbroken. "We keep moving," he whispered, pulling me deeper into the forest. The moon hung low, casting jagged shadows, and every snap of a twig felt like a gunshot. Caleb was coming, and he wasn't alone. We ran, branches clawing at our skin, the cold biting through my thin shirt. Lucas was limping, his injuries slowing us down, but he refused to stop. "There's a safe house," he panted. 10 miles north. If we can make it. If. That word hung heavy. 10 miles through hostile territory, with a pack of alphas on our trail, was a death wish. But I'd rather die running than live in Caleb's cage. "We'll make it," I said, more to convince myself than him. The forest seemed to close in, the air thick with the scent of pursuit. I could feel Caleb's presence, his alpha aura like a storm on the horizon. My Omega instincts screamed to submit, to stop. But Lucas's hand in mine kept me grounded. He'd always seen me as more than my biology, more than a role. That was why I loved him, not because of pheromones or fate, but because he chose me, and I chose him. We reached a clearing, the safe house nowhere in sight, when the first wolf appeared. Its eyes glowed amber, its growl low and menacing. Then another, and another, until we were surrounded. Caleb stepped forward, human again, his face a mask of fury and pain. "You can't keep running, Ethan," he said, his voice raw. "This is your home." "This isn't home," I said, stepping in front of Lucas. "It's a prison." Caleb's eyes flickered to Lucas, and the air crackled with tension. "He's poisoned you," he said. "Made you think you're something you're not." "No," I said, my voice steady. "He showed me who I am." Caleb's fists clenched, and for a moment, I thought he'd attack. But then another howl sounded different, sharper. The rival pack. They burst into the clearing. Their alpha, a scarred woman named Mara, striding forward. "Caleb," she said, her voice cold. "Your pack's weak. Hand over the Omega, or we take everything." Caleb's growl was feral, but I saw the fear in his eyes. His pack was fractured, his control slipping. Mara's pack was larger, stronger, and they knew it. I seized the moment, pulling Lucas toward the edge of the clearing. "Run," I whispered. We bolted, the chaos of the rival packs clashing behind us. Wolves snarled, bodies collided, and the air filled with the scent of blood. We didn't look back. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But Lucas's hand in mine kept me going. We ran until the sounds of battle faded, until the forest opened to a dirt road where a beat-up truck waited the safe house contact. A grizzled beta named Sarah who owed Lucas a favor. "Get in," she barked, gunning the engine as we dove into the back. The truck roared to life, tearing down the road as dawn broke over the mountains. I clung to Lucas, his arms around me, his heartbeat steady against my chest. We were alive. We were free. Sarah drove us to a safe house in Idaho, a small cabin hidden in the woods. There, we bandaged our wounds, ate, and slept for the first time in days. But safety felt temporary. Caleb was still out there, and his obsession wouldn't fade. I knew he'd come for me again. One day. That night, under a sky full of stars, Lucas and I sat on the cabin's porch. He took my hand, his thumb tracing the scars on my wrist. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better," he said, his voice thick with guilt. "You did," I said, leaning into him. "You gave me a reason to keep fighting." He kissed me then, slow and gentle, like we had all the time in the world. For the first time, I believed we might. We weren't just running from something anymore. We were running towards something, a life we could build together, free from alphas and packs and cages. Years later, we'd settle in a small coastal town in Oregon, far from Montana's shadows. I'd open a coffee shop. Lucas would teach at the local school, and we'd live openly, unashamed. Our love a quiet rebellion against a world that tried to define us. Caleb never found us. Or maybe he stopped looking. I'd like to think he let me go, but I'll never know. What I do know is this: freedom isn't a place or a moment. It's a choice, made every day, to love and fight and live on your own terms. Lucas and I chose each other, and that was enough.